the NFL podcast. Really need to get to their bye week.
From the Chris Wesseling Podcast Studio, it's Around the NFL. There is no bye week. We've pounded doors in this building for years, seeking that bye week. Or at least Marc and I. Greg's like, oh, keep me here every day. I love it. But it's not happening. It is the first Sunday of December, and it is the Week 13 Sunday flagship show for the Around the NFL. And I will say this, Marc Sessler, and it happened to me as well. It happened to you with the first game we're going to talk about. Once again, the 2021 NFL season, just when you think you have all the answers, they go and change the questions. It's a very hard season to figure out.
It's a muddled mess because I thought I was doing my job by, observing games from last week and games leading up to last week and coming away with observations that I thought were informed and strong, and they're shredded entirely. And also, on a more psychological level, I spent all of yesterday thinking it was week 14. And did not realize till I got to work that it was week 13. So I'm just saying, it is a bit of a marathon, and that was a mental miscue on my part.
Yeah. I mean, the emotional ride that Marc has gone with his belief in certain AFC North teams. How about all those afternoon games all came down to 1 foot? You change 1 foot in the Washington game where Carr misses the open touchdown. Certainly, we'll get to the Ravens game. And then that 49ers ending.
Al Pacino told us that's how football operates.
We thought this was the worst week of games on paper, but it was a good Sunday. It ended up working out.
Are you talking about just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in?
Any given Sunday.
We're talking hoo-ah!
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe somewhere in between those eras, You know the speech that everyone knows the speech I'm discussing.
I think he's just in the locker room. He's going, hoo-ah!
He's nice. Dude, saying a little bit more.
You got a great...
They're trying to take it away from you, the inches, Gregg. That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay. Good callback. All right. There's not enough good football movies.
I agree with that, but I feel like I'm the only one. It's some niche French film.
I used to say that, and then I saw the trailer for the new Kurt Warner movie, and now I think...
You're back in.
We got a chance.
You're back in.
We got a chance.
Okay.
American Hero. Great title for a football film? Yes or no, Gregg?
Are you sure that's the title?
American Hero. Gravedigger shaking
American
his head, no.
Underdog.
What did I say? That's what I said, right?
No, you did not say that, but that's...
All right, so we're going to get to all the games that were played on Sunday. And why not start, yes, with the late games. There were two that ended within minutes of each other, high on drama. And yes, the first one, AFC North, buckle up, baby. Hoo-ah!
Freeman stands to his right. Freeman gets a fake. Big rush. He throws it. And it's dropped by Mark Andrews. Had one hand on it. Out in the right flat. And he dropped the ball. And the Steelers preserve a victory with 12 seconds to go. Wow.
Bill Hillgrove with the call. All right, that was not a drop by Mark Andrews. He got a fingertip on it. A 2-point conversion. That's what John Harbaugh said. The Ravens score the touchdown, pull within 1 point. They said, we want to go for 2. We want to win the ball game, John Harbaugh said. Play like a Raven, all that stuff. He went for the win, but that gamble cost the Ravens and kept the Steelers in the mix in the AFC North. The pass went incomplete. Lamar just overthrew his tight end. 2019 final. Sammy Watkins had the big touchdown catch on a great little route to get it within 1 with 12 seconds to play. But Pittsburgh got the stop, or got a little lucky, whatever you want to say. Either way, they got the win. Marky, I try to warn you. I said, you can't count out Pittsburgh. This is what they do. And this was a spot where they were desperate for a win. And the Ravens could stand to take a loss. And all of it all played out. And the Steelers are in the mix still.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm not uninformed by the idea that Pittsburgh is a resilient team that does things like this. But what I had seen coming into this game, and frankly, what they showed on offense for the first 3 quarters of this game, all played up to what we were saying about Pittsburgh's insufficient offense. I mean, just an absolute mess. They had 18 plays in the first half. They had 93 total yards, and the Ravens put up 23 minutes of time of possession, which is the most the Ravens have had against any team in 20 years. Where Pittsburgh was staying alive was they were doing what other teams have done to Lamar Jackson. 7 sacks on the day, coaxed him into an early, costly interception. And then at that point, Pittsburgh's offense, I think they found themselves. I mean, we've seen it for spurts in certain games, but the Najee Harris and Benny Snell started to get to Pittsburgh right up the middle with runs right up the gut. And you finally started to get plays from Big Ben. He hit Chase Claypool on a 40-yarder. Deontay Harris started to completely come alive in this game. Deontay Johnson, they absolutely, fourth quarter wise, it gives you hope if you're a Steelers fan, the way that they were able to, I think, use play action, which, Tony Romo pointed this out too, that their only successful plays seemed to come off that. And they started to use a little bit more. And Big Ben's arm, he threw some of the better passes he's thrown on the year to get them back into this game. It was a classic Steelers-Ravens game in many different ways.
If this is the last Ben Roethlisberger victory, and Marc was saying all week they're not going to win another game all season, so it's possible.
All right, let Marc off the hook. It's been a tough year for all of us.
They got a tough schedule. I'm just having fun because I don't think Marc really believed that, so I'm having fun with it. I also don't think Marc.
I believe they were done as a playoff team, and in this AFC they're not done.
That still might end up being true with this schedule. They're not in the playoffs right now, but you went from believing that to when they finished that touchdown drive and Deontay Johnson put it on Marlon Humphrey, and I believe injured Marlon Humphrey because his route was so good because Marlon Humphrey's hurt now. At that point in the game, you said, "Oh, Ben Roethlisberger's going to be in the AFC Championship, isn't he?"
Well, he's doing a little
thing. I can just see it now. And that is an unbelievable fourth quarter. To go 4 for 78 touchdown, 10 for 50 field goal, 11 for 59 touchdown is outrageous. And for Lamar to get them back in that position, then come up about 2 inches short if he just puts that ball
Big Ben did his little thing where he points up to the sky, and I was just I'm going to be. He's not out of my life in 4 or 5
almost
weeks.
What Gregg alluded to. There was a report that came out Saturday that this is going to be Big Ben's final season, and if this is the end for Big Ben, I guess if you're a Steelers fan who's been nostalgic thinking about that and all the memories that have passed during his long career, this was a bit of a vintage throwback game. Now, that decision by John Harbaugh, it was fun as hell in the moment. We all applauded it in the newsroom. We all stared at our screens and with awe and reverence for a man having onions that size. But there was also a strategic reason behind it, according to Harbaugh, who told the media after the game that issues in the secondary helped prompt the decision.
Into the decision-making to go for 2 instead of just kicking.
Try to win the game right there. We were pretty much out of corners, at that point in time. So there's an opportunity to try to win the game right there.
So there you go. So Harbaugh said, my defense is so beat up, I don't like my chances in overtime. And Gregg, ultimately it was a good play call too, the 2-point conversion. It just wasn't executed.
Was it a good play call? Everyone's like, okay, he was open. Yes, but if you watch the play, Lamar Jackson has to shift up in the pocket with a lateral quickness that basically no other quarterback in the league could do to avoid T.J. Watt and then throw it over his outstretched hands. I thought it was a pretty good throw.
He's an open receiver at the goal line, though, Gregg. I know what you're saying, but it was not as
what I'm saying is how great of a play call is I think Lamar Jackson did a pretty good job on that play, and Marc Andrews did a pretty good job on that play, trying for it. And they're two great players, and you couldn't execute. It was a difficult
interesting
play.
Way to look at it. Okay.
The theme also was that T.J. Watt was in his face. He was in his face all game.
My point is
Chris
almost
Wormley
no other quarterback gets a
sacks.
ball that close in that spot, considering Watt never bought the play fake. So if you're going to give credit to the play fake, then you have to confuse T.J. Watt on that play, and he read it, and he had a monster game.
So, and also I think part of this, Marc, when you were kind of all in on the Steelers being all out, we know the offense is still limited. This is kind of who they are. They're just not going to score a lot of points anymore at this point, at least until they get a new quarterback, which is coming sooner rather than later. But I think the defense stepping up after they got embarrassed by Cincinnati the week prior, that showed again that they are a team that they're not going to go out easily. And in Baltimore, on the TV show on Friday, I set up the Ravens by asking you guys, can the Ravens keep doing this? Can they keep playing teams so close and always finding a way? And they almost did it again in this game, but it just goes to show you, there's regression involved here. If you play this many close games, you're going to start losing some of them. They just have to play more complete football.
Well, and if the blitz versus Lamar is for real. I mean, his numbers are staggeringly different and, not shiny when he's dealing with the blitz. They got to him today. I mean, last week Cleveland coaxed him into a bunch of turnovers. I'm not saying that he's Teflon because he still does things that are really special, but he looked like a one-man show for large parts of this game today, and I don't think that is sustainable. You get to the playoffs, yes, but are you going to go on a 3-game win streak in the postseason with Lamar being Lamar and dealing with what teams are doing right now?
Well, he's struggled for more than a month. The red zone interception really hurt. They averaged 4.7 yards per play. Their offense isn't great. I mean, the touchdown drive at the end of the game was kind of amazing. Sammy Watkins makes a couple great routes and looks like old Sammy Watkins, and Lamar kind of has an MVP type of drive and you can't finish it. But the game ends, and after the game you hear that Marlon Humphrey is out multiple weeks, their best cornerback. Patrick McCarry, who to me has been the key to that offensive line at right tackle, kind of coming out of nowhere and has been off and on. It sounds like his injury is pretty serious. So you just lost 2 more of your best players to a team that's been really banged up, and it gives the feel that this AFC North, we went into the season thinking, maybe all 4 of these teams have a chance. And I still feel like all 4 of these teams at least have a chance now because of this result.
All right, let's move on to another game that went down to the final seconds, this time in Seattle.
The building is shaking with a single setback. Garoppolo looks. Ball is tipped up in the air. It's going to fall to the ground. The Seahawks are going to win this football game. The 4th and 3 pass was tipped at the line of scrimmage. I don't know who tipped it, but I want to go down and shake that man's hand. I might have been Dunlap.
It was Carlos Dunlap, who's been quiet this year but stepped up in this game. He had a sack that play on 4th down, saving the Seahawks in a 30-23 win over the 49ers, ending a 49ers win streak. Crazy game here. By the way, the Niners took over after an incredible goal line stand that ended in a Gerald Everett turnover. And Gerald Everett had one of the worst games you will ever see, any tight end ever have. You will be stunned when you watch this tape of Gerald Everett and the Seahawks. They take over the Niners at their own 2 and march all the way to the other end of the field and have that chance, gets the 4th down, and Dunlap knocks that ball away. And the Seattle Seahawks, I mean, listen, they're still probably cooked at 4-8, but this was a game, and I locked up the Niners, took the L. Mark, you have first place in the Locks Challenge.
I look at things long term. I'm not concerned with where I am in the standings at the moment.
I mean, the way
Spoken
that
like a champion.
The way that Mark was celebrating every good Seahawks play.
That is not true.
And then when Dan came to the office, then it got quiet. Then he didn't do it anymore.
No one loves the Locks competition.
And it's funny
more
because
than
he was
Sessler.
saying how much he likes the 49ers.
That is total fiction.
And then Dan comes in and it's just total silence.
Total fiction. An utter fiction that you've created verbally. I manufactured. If anything, I like the idea of Seattle being taken out of the landscape, and I've been rooting for the Niners, so I wasn't sitting around celebrating.
I believe
this.
Gregg in this case because I know, and this is fine.
Well, of course you do, but it's just not.
No,
accurate.
this is just fine because you do love the Locks competition at a level that I think surpasses any of us. That's all. That's fine. It's cool. You're a competitive guy.
That does not make Gregg's story accurate, even though what you said is true. I do care about the competition. It doesn't turn that into a true story.
I like your competitive spirit, Mark.
Okay.
I enjoy it. But let's get back to the game. 30-23. They got the stop, and I thought this was interesting. The Seahawks that we saw in this game, and this is a weird game. It had 7 turnovers. It had the aforementioned Gerald Everett meltdown, a drop in the end zone on a wide open pass that turned into an INT, a fumble down at the goal line that almost swung the game the other way, another fumble that he lost. I mean, it was out of this world. There was a safety in this game. But ultimately, I thought the takeaway, Mark, was that the Seahawks, who looked dead and buried, as dead as the Steelers looked last week, they played like the old Seahawks, and again, they give the 49ers problems, even when the 49ers were at their height. And if there's one other thing I took away from the Niners side of things, man, I'm not saying Jimmy G's the reason they lost this game, But you could tell Kyle Shanahan is just frustrated by the limitations that his quarterback presents in front of him.
It was the safety where they cut to Shanahan after Jimmy G is taken down in the end zone. This is after they were clinging to a 23-21 lead, and Seattle, I thought, grabbed momentum, if we're allowed to believe that exists, with that safety. And Shanahan looked cold and old to me on the sideline after that. And he also looked super steamed at Jimmy G after a later really bad interception. Jimmy G was later stuffed on 3rd and 1 that led to a punt. In a really tight game going back and forth, it was like, we get it, Jimmy G is not the future, but he's not even the short-term future when he's playing like that.
Did Elijah Mitchell come back? Or was he out?
He did. He came back.
Okay, that's good.
He suffered a head injury.
But their ground game was a mess. 2.8 yards per carry.
They didn't run the ball well. In general, the offense, they got off to a nice start. I should also mention there was after all those other things I mentioned, but also Seattle opened its scoring on a 73-yard Travis Homer fake punt run for a touchdown. I mean, this game had it all. But San Francisco's offense was basically George Kittle being unbelievable. I mean, George Kittle, when he's healthy, is better than everybody else that plays that position. I really do believe that. His health and staying healthy has been his biggest challenge. But yeah, they didn't move the ball too well for stretches of this game, San Francisco, and I thought Russell Wilson, 30 of 37, 231, 2 touchdowns. He had one of those very pretty rainbow touchdowns to Tyler Lockett, and I thought to myself after it was thrown, I was like, man, I haven't seen that in a while. So I'm not. We'll see if it wakes up Seattle and they end up either playing spoiler or somehow getting back into the playoff race. But for San Francisco, it did awaken some maybe demons that cost them earlier in this season.
Did Lockett come back into this game? Because he left for the locker room at 1.2.
He also came back,
okay.
yes, and he scored after that.
They're in the NFC, which is the best news for the 49ers. So even with like a loss, they're a loss up on the 7 seed. They're or the 8 seed rather. They're in the playoffs. And the Seahawks, they do have that. They have the Texans, Bears, Lions still on the schedule. They do have some tough games at the Rams, Cardinals. It is nice to just see the idea that Russell Wilson can play quarterback again, though. When you would have thought if you can put up this many points for the 49ers the way Seattle has been playing lately, you win this game. But to score 21 points for Seattle in the second quarter is pretty awesome. And this rock, scissor, paper thing going on in the NFC West is like the one predictable thing in all of football right now. It's indestructible. The Seahawks have beaten them 16 out of 18 times. That precedes Shanahan even, but that is outrageous.
Nothing would be more emblematic than the 15th seeded Seahawks in the NFC grabbing a playoff spot on January 9th or whenever that is.
The game started in a very scary way on the kickoff when Trenton Cannon, running back, collided with a teammate, and it stopped the game down. An ambulance came out, and the face mask comes off, and all that scary stuff. He's taken to the hospital with a concussion. He's in stable condition, remaining overnight for observation. And one note on Kittle. Just the second tight end in the past 5 seasons with at least 100 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns in the first half. His touchdown, where he danced along the sideline, his second score, just special stuff. He is just such a beast. He's fun to watch.
They got to get healthier. They didn't have Fred Warner. They didn't have Deebo Samuel. I mean, these are their best players.
Marcel Harris, Emmanuel Mosley suffering an ankle injury. They need to get healthy. All right, let's move on. So those 2 games, saucy. Now, up next, the Detroit Lions. Could they finally get it done? Could they get a W? Let's find out. Well, you probably
The Lions,
know.
11 yards
if you're listening
from
to
the
the show,
end
you
zone
probably
they got
know,
to
but
have.
some people
4
don't.
seconds to go.
Cold
they can
call.
win it with a touchdown. First victory of the year on the line. Goff's got it.
Right
back, looks, throws, ends up. Yes! Caught! Touchdown, Detroit Lions! They did it! Amon-Ra St. Brown in the receiving end! Oh, they're rushing the field! They've done it! 3-0 on the clock! This game is over! It's over! Jared Goff to Amon-Ra St. Brown, his first career touchdown. And how big is that? Oh, my goodness.
Dan Miller with the call. Oh, I thought the Lions would get the bongos, Ricky. If any team ever deserved the bongos. Dan Miller, WJR with the call. And a great call it was. Lions fans rejoice. You got your W. Jared Goff threw an 11-yard touchdown pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown as time expired, lifting the previously winless Detroit Football Club to a 29-27 win over the Vikings at Joyous Ford Field. We told you. We told you about the Vikings this week. They could not be trusted. Greg, the Lions needed to go 75 yards in 110 seconds with no timeouts, and they freaking did it.
It was one of my favorite games and certainly one of my favorite moments of this entire season. There is something about when the last team that doesn't have a win gets a win, especially when it's this deep, that is joyous. It reminds me of Cleo Lemon to Gregg Camarillo to get Cam Cameron off the schneid in December for the Dolphins like a decade ago. It was heroic by Jared Goff, this drive where they just stayed patient, and Godwin Igwebuike made this great play on a catch, this running back, to pick up a 3rd and 10 and get out of bounds. And I just kept saying, wow, they're not going for the end zone. They're not going for the end zone. Not one time. You get to the 12 and give Goff credit. He had great timing throughout this game. He releases that ball in perfect time before Amon-Ra St. Brown turns around. The throw was there. The rookie, first touchdown of his career. What a way to get it. And Vikings fans are just going to be killing Cameron Dancer, but he was held by Jared Goff, who was looking up the seams with his eyes where they'd been killing the Vikings all day because they didn't have Anthony Barr, they didn't have Eric Kendricks, and he had been going up the seams all day. So it looked in the first TV copy just like bad defense, but that was a great job by Jared Goff, and then a great job by Goff to immediately sprint to the sideline and hug Dan Campbell, who was celebrating like crazy. You did it. We asked you to go win a ball game, Jared Goff, and you did it.
I mean, and yet we have been sort of pet Vikings supporters, and that fan base right now is as lost as...
Whoa. Not we. I have enjoyed the Vikings all season long, and that continues. Every week they play exciting, fun, ridiculous games. I'm just so happy I'm not a Vikings fan.
Right, because
I've supported their season because it's fun.
This is an exciting, fun game on its own, but I think that fan base feels like they've been dragged through the mud week after week. It's an absolute nightmare scenario for them.
They were down 20-6 in this game. If you're a Vikings fan, you come all the way back to take a lead. You think you're going to keep it. And then the Lions go for it on their own 29 with 5 minutes to go, up 2. Mm-hmm. This was ballsier than the Bill Belichick going up against the Colts play, who they famously did it, more than a decade ago because they had the lead in that game. He goes for it, and you know what? The football gods rewarded him. That's twice in one day. Campbell went for it on 4th and 1 in his own end. They didn't get it either time, but I liked it because they're trying to win it on offense, and if nothing else, it didn't give the Vikings too much time to waste. They were either going to get their field goal or touchdown quickly, and the Lions could at least try to respond. They got the touchdown, which was not the outcome you wanted, that the Vikings did, but at least gave the Lions a little bit of time to go be heroes.
I think the Viking, and it's funny because it's been saying like they could beat any team, they could lose to any team, and now, and I'll use the power rankings as the framing because I'm known to do that, the Packers are the number 1 team in the power rankings. They beat the Packers. The Lions entering Sunday were the number 32 team in the power rankings. They've now been beaten by the Lions, and it's just like, and you've been mentioning this, Marc, at times, that Mike Zimmer is a guy who could be in trouble. I think if Zimmer, there's a pretty decent chance he goes in January, and if it happens, you could trace it right back to what happened here, because not only just the frustrations building within that organization, within the fan base, and to let this game get away in the wide open NFC, and you just never know. Again, let's not get ahead of ourselves and say the Vikings are dead now, because the NFC is a total
only one
free for all.
Only one
exactly.
Back.
But like if they end up dropping another one of these type of games, or just fall short and he gets fired, well, remember this game on December 5th. And speaking of remembering, Dan Campbell, this was really nice. After the game in his press conference, Campbell gave the game ball he dedicated the game to the victims of the Oxford shooting, that horrible tragedy that happened in Michigan last week, the school shooting. He named the victims. He said those names will never be forgotten, and that was incredibly meaningful, I imagine, for that region, because that was such a horrible thing that happened. So just like in a season of such frustration and for the Lions, this was a nice moment.
Yeah, and I've often found Jared Goff to be a little vacant in terms of being an electrifying personality. But he spoke after the game as well about the Oxford incident and was brought to tears. And I just think like it kind of shows you that regionally, but nationally, that was on their hearts. It was a huge moment. And I will say this, if you're the Vikings, you have a game coming up against the Steelers on Thursday night. That becomes a massive Thursday night showdown.
The injuries are such a huge story. Before the game, we found out that both those linebackers I mentioned were out. Their left tackle, Christian Darrisaw, was out. Cam Bynum, who's played great lately, was out. Patrick Peterson was out. And Adam Thielen went out during this game, which helped Justin Jefferson go off for another 11 for 182. He's on Cooper Kupp's tail, I think, for this Offensive Player of the Year. It was not enough. It was not a fluke either. Kirk Cousins got away with a couple would-be interceptions. Dan Campbell is calling the plays and was really outfoxing Zimmer, at least for the first half. Then it kind of slowed down, but they were going up.
That doesn't cool Zimmer's seat.
No, Zimmer's seat is warming up. All right, let us move on. By the way, I had asked Ricky and Gravedigger to pull the Paul Allen Vikings call, and he was very even-keeled because it's like, first of all, Paul Allen's been doing it a long time. Like, as a Vikings fan, you kind of see this stuff coming now. It's just like
every
this
week.
is what happens with this team.
It's a stage play for him. It's the same role every week.
That was next level.
Unbelievable. Wow. All right, let's head to Cincinnati, where the Bengals couldn't possibly be stopped. Or could they?
Now they go jumbo. Mixon bounces. Right ball on the ground.
Marcus
Scooped up.
His face in his hand.
Scooped up by Tavon Campbell. 40, 30, 20, 10. Touchdown Chargers. 60-yard fumble return for Tavon Campbell.
Oh, money, the voice of God. On the Around the NFL podcast, Power Rankings cohort. He had the call for KYSR. Tavon Campbell returned to Joe Mixon fumble, 61 yards for a score, helping the Chargers hold off the Bengals. 41-22. Greg, this was a game defined by streaks. 24 straight for the Bolts to start the game. 22 straight for the Bengals after that. And then 17 straight by the Bolts to close out after that. And it was the Campbell play that changed everything.
It was one of 7 turnovers. And I think the Chargers had 3 straight at one point, and hence the Bengals scoring 22 unanswered, and the Bengals are going in for what would have been a go-ahead score midway through the third quarter. I mean, the Chargers, if nothing else, they're doing their Charger in a little earlier this year.
That's a good way to do it. Get it out of the way, not at the end of the game.
They were up 24-0 mid-second quarter, and then they were holding on to a 24-22 lead while the Bengals are driving mid-third quarter. 1 quarter later, like 14 minutes of game or 15 minutes of game time later, that fumble changed it. Eckler had a couple fumbles, Mixon had a couple. So, great players kind of giving up the ball. But I thought it was deserved because the one constant throughout this game was they got after Joe Burrow. And I was kind of shocked by that because the Chargers have not been good in terms of their pass rush all season. Joey Bosa got a concussion in this game. If you remember last year, he was out for a long time with a pair of concussions. So that is a big-time concern for the Chargers. And that was very early in this game. And yet, as it kept coming, Burrow played fantastic. He had one of the best performances in a quarterback that ended up getting blown out I've seen.
With a bad hand.
Right. With the pinky, hurt, making good decisions, throwing the ball against pressure. It was not on Joe Burrow. But the Chargers kept getting them. In the running game, they were getting Mixon for negative plays, including that forced fumble was a jackknife into the backfield. And the Bengals were short 2 offensive linemen. I can hear the Wesseling brothers say that they were injured. Okay, they're injured, Nick.
Speaking of the Wesseling brothers.
Yeah, I was...
Guys. And I don't want to hear Nick Wesseling. Nick, love him. He's the best. But he's getting, after the game, when it's 24-zip, he's texting us. And he's saying, I actually had 2 recordings, one to go against the Bengals, one to go with the Chargers. I sent the wrong one. It's like, nah, bro.
No, he didn't say he sent the wrong one.
He said
not the accidentally,
right,
but he made the wrong decision.
Yes.
I think he's sort of maybe, removing himself from the rest of the group, saying I was on both sides of the fence. But infighting seems to be a consistent problem for that group.
It's good.
Do you believe that, by the way? Do you believe that he actually made a recording?
I absolutely believe that he made 2 recordings and he was debating. And,
Nick, send me the other recording with a timestamp, please.
It makes sense, though. Both these teams deserve to be 7-5. I'm sorry, Bengals. I don't think you deserve to be 8-4. This is who you are, and the Chargers deserved it because
you called that, Greg.
They were dictating early. They threw the ball deep. They went tempo early. Mike Williams making plays down the field. Like, I liked that when they were aggressive, they were moving the pocket for Justin Herbert to try to fix their offensive line problems, and it was a very aggressive game plan. And so I think they got rewarded.
So I'm not doing this again, where I fall for. This is the team that I fell so hard for and went on a one-man PR campaign about how the Bengals can beat anyone in football. Well, it's nonsense because
but that's true.
Mark was fired up during the early games too, and I don't. Did you have money on this game? Because he was
he would not.
I am not. I'm forbidden to do that.
He was dying that the Chargers were winning this game, and I couldn't think of why.
Well, one reason is that you and I, we somehow were kind of we weren't arguing at all, Greg, but you were very pro Chargers watching this.
Oh, that's
very
good. Good.
very juiced up, and I was watching.
I love Herbert. I'm not. I don't hide it.
I'm not walking around rooting for the Bengals, but it was more just this.
I'm
annoyed with Greg. Exactly, and you find out that I should have figured this out 2 months ago. Nothing sticks from week to week this season.
You stuck your neck out for the Bengals, and
dumb move.
And we talked about it late last week. That's a tricky move because as good as they were. In those last 2 wins, it wasn't so long ago that they looked terrible in back-to-back losses, and they're just like maybe a better version, but like the Vikings, they could beat any team, and they've shown that they could lose and lose convincingly in a big spot as well. It's just why the league is such a jumble this year.
And now watching the Ravens lose later, obviously they're happy for that. They're 1 game back, but they could have been in first place. Huge win, though, I think, for the Chargers to get this offense going. Guyton and Allen and everyone was making plays for them today.
2 out of 3
Do you
weeks.
trust them at all to do that next week? I don't care who they're playing.
No,
of course not.
No, the Chargers are even less trustworthy to me.
But it is,
especially without Bledsoe.
It is destabilizing to my eyes to deal with this, but it is the new way it is. It is the way it is.
If you kind of just embrace the madness,
yeah.
This has helped me with my power rankings assignment. Otherwise, I would start to have some mental issues over it. Just embrace it and understand it's not your fault when you get these things wrong, because who can tell?
Much more freeing to just say, I have no control. You control me.
All right. I like that. All right. Let's take a break and then get to Nick Shook.
Wide snap for Stafford. He snags it with one hand, gathers, throws middle, caught by Cooper Kupp. 20, 10, crosses the field. Touchdown, Cooper Kupp. Touchdown, LA. 29 yards from Matthew Stafford.
Oh, man. The Rams needed a layup. And that's what the Jaguars are. Let's be honest. JB Long, our buddy, hung out with JB this summer. Going to do it again next summer. Maybe even before that.
In the winter
maybe the winter. Maybe the spring we'll hang out. Every season we'll hang out once. Matthew Stafford snapped out of a slump with 3 touchdown passes, including yet another scoring connection with Cooper Kupp. And Los Angeles rolled to a 37-7 win over the unwatchable Jaguars. Hey, Shook, so our newsroom right next to the stadium. I actually, when I was throwing out some trash, because for some reason in this new building, they say, let's build a 10,000 square foot newsroom with 4 trash cans. We're talking, the closest trash can to us is about 40 yards away.
I'm with you that it is annoying.
1 second, Shook.
You have to
go
get
ahead,
up
Marc.
every 20 minutes and walk with your paper plate or whatever and find a trash can. But on those Sundays in the Culver City office around 3, 4 o'clock, those full garbage cans started to have a putrid stench, and I don't miss that. That's all I'd say.
All right, well,
it feels
that's
more
fair
cleanly.
Anyway, so when I walked to the trash can and I went to the big glass partition that shows the vista of the SoFi Stadium, all those happy Rams fans filing out after a blowout win, I thought to myself, I wonder what it's like for you to walk out of a stadium as a fan of a team after an easy win like that, Chuck, because the Rams needed it.
Yeah, they definitely needed it, and Jacksonville came to town at the perfect time.
Shooky!
To break this losing streak for them. It was one of those games where the Rams got off to another slow start offensively, and it was kind of like, well, they still haven't really figured it out. And then they hit halftime, and it's almost as if they realized, oh wait, we're playing the Jaguars on the other side of the field. We should be able to do this. And they woke up, and Matthew Stafford specifically with 3 touchdown passes in the second half, they cruised. I mean, it was an easy operation for them in the second half. The big thing for me, I think that really encouraged me for the Rams was, and I know it's the Jaguars, so like you have to take it with a grain of salt, but Sony Michel breaks 120 rushing yards today on 24 carries for a touchdown. That was a welcome development for a team that has not been able to run the football consistently for most of this season, and it helped bring some balance to them. And like I said, they cruise. You're playing the Jaguars. The Jaguars, you're 1 week closer to the offseason.
Henderson, I was watching that game and thinking, they miss Henderson. It didn't end up mattering. Obviously, he was hurt. It was like Henderson would have had 225. The holes that they were blowing open for Sony Michel were enormous. And I'm beginning to think like an offense where Laquan Treadwell is your number 1 receiver for 2 straight weeks, maybe not that explosive. This Jaguars team.
I mean, it would have been explosive.
It's like,
what the year he was drafted.
What are we doing here?
The one note that I took on this game, because I wasn't able, Nick, to track it as closely as you, was the look on Urban Meyer's face, like roughly kind of late third quarter, early fourth, as if someone just had stuck slices of lemon into his mouth. I mean, he does not look like he's having any fun out there on any level.
There's that memorable photo of Urban Meyer after he lost to, I don't remember who it was, I think the Big Ten title game, in the bowels of Lucas Oil Stadium, eating Papa John's pizza on a golf cart. That's like his entire season has been that photo.
Dan wanted Aaron Donald to like do some things, and he was totally done. He started the game literally by picking up James Robinson, throwing him while knocking the ball out, which was exciting, and then he totally wreck-shopped the rest of the game. So, he did
against the worst offense any of us have ever seen.
Hey, it was a start.
It's a start. In a big spot, we're going to need Aaron Donald to win a ball game, but that is a good start. Oh, yeah. Shook.
I like this Dan Aaron Donald thing. This is going to, at some point, you're going to meet in person.
OBJ like the 100-yard touchdown to make everyone happy at the end. That was fun. So,
what do you think about the OB? Yeah, he's got 2 in 2 weeks now.
Well, I mean, it was a jump ball in the end zone, and they were up by a ton of points, so it doesn't matter to me. He
also saved his body on one of those.
To be fair, that play that everyone killed him on in Cleveland for not going for? The play that he didn't go for today in the end zone was 5 times worse. It was way worse. Like, the other one was questionable. This one was like, I am not going to hurt my back on this play. But,
What about Shook if we just put... I'm not saying you need to have trash bins for every desk, but just in different quadrants of the new newsroom. What about that?
I'm stunned. I mean, you guys have state-of-the-art equipment everywhere else. You got great desk chairs. You got standing desks. You got your names on the frosted glass or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, for somebody who's never been there, it looks fantastic. To hear this development about a lack of trash.
Are you not coming to the holiday party? We got the holiday party on Tuesday, Shook.
I mean, you did choose to move to Cleveland. So
I was lured here.
Like, Shook, do you have heated toilet seats in your house? Because that's what we have here at work. If you were to come to our work,
they're kind of gross.
I hear there's also bidets there.
Yeah,
there are.
Not on this program.
I've yet to try that.
Save it for the bidet podcast. Yeah. All right, Shooky, let's move on to the next game on your docket. By the way, can you expense a flight for the holiday party?
I would love to, but I think it's too late to make that manageable.
All right, let's hit the next game.
Minshew takes the snap. He backs up. He looks. He is looping in, catching in. Goddard in for a second touchdown. Made it look easy.
There's that guy again.
Merrill Reese and Mike Quick for WIP. Gardner Minshew started in place of an injured Jalen Hurts. Led the Eagles to scores on their first 7 possessions. 33-18, the final over the Jets at the Meadowlands. Shook. Minshew had open receivers all day long against the Jets defense that, according to some players, said they had no idea that there could be a scenario where Gardner Minshew would be playing in the game. It looked like that all afternoon.
That seems like a lack of preparation, but yeah, you're right. It did. He had 11 straight completions to start the game. He was very sharp. I mean, he's Gardner Minshew. It's not like he's Aaron Rodgers back there, but he got the offense moving, kept them moving to the point where late in the game, I'm sitting there thinking, come on, Jets, like take another 2 more minutes off the clock on this drive when you're already down 2 scores. we got to finish with a scoring result on every Eagles possession. I want some historical outcome from this game just because it was already decided at that point. Ultimately, they had to punt on the following possession. But before that, I mean, he was efficient and really paced this offense. Miles Sanders also got involved and was a huge part of their offense today, 120 yards on the ground. A Sony Michel-like game, if you will. He left with an ankle injury, so hopefully that's not too serious. But the big story, I think, for me, besides Gardner Minshew, is Dallas Goedert. I mean, how can you not love Dallas Goedert since they traded Zach Ertz? He's stepped up and I think kind of owned that tight end one role. I mean, that's how he got that extension, and he continues to. And in games like this, where you have your backup quarterback and you know he needs to rely on the tight end, you got 2 explosive touchdowns out of him.
It was like he wasn't even covered in the first half. And if you think that the Eagles fan base and those reporters in Philly aren't clamoring for a QB battle here or a controversy, you don't know Philly sports. After the game, Nick Sirianni was asked if Gardner Minshew might have a chance to steal the job from Jalen Hurts.
But with Jalen being our starter, I think he's played good football. I think he's played really good football. I think there's been times where he's been one of the best in the league with the way he's moved around, made plays, and with his, we look at that quarterback rating and what he's had there, and so he's played really good football when he's in, and so when he's healthy and he's back, he'll be our starter.
Well, they got a bye week coming up, which might have informed the decision not to play him. Hurts is the identity of that team because their identity is a running team. Now, the fact that they were able to run for 185 today without him shows it's not just Hurts, but they were playing the Jets.
And that's only 11 yards from Minshew. I mean, Minshew, I'm done calling Andy Dalton or anyone else the best backup in the league. It's Gardner Minshew. He's an assassin.
Minshew is a very good backup. He's great. I think the only thing I'll say about this is, and this has happened with other teams with the Jets defense. The Jets defense is so bad. Yeah. It's like trying to draw too many conclusions. I'm worried about the whole operation with Saleh because I know they're undermanned. They don't have a lot of talent, and injuries have taken some of their best players. But they are just completely non-competitive on some of these weeks. And I thought that maybe they had patched some things up. They were impossible to watch in this game.
Sounded like Zach Wilson, though, has a great start to the game. Like, what's the boy who shall lead us?
The boy who shall lead us on their, and this is my favorite Jets stat in a long time. The Jets scored touchdowns on their first 3 possessions, but after their opponent's first 3 possessions, they were losing by a field goal. You can't make that up. Random kicker number 37 missed his 2 extra points and did not see the field again except for kickoffs. And then they went for 2 and missed on their 3rd score. And then that was it for their offense. In the defense of Mike LaFleur and company and Zach Wilson, they didn't even see the ball in the 3rd quarter. They had the ball for 70 seconds in the 3rd quarter. So there just wasn't much going on after those first 3 drives, but it was progress. He came out, shook, and he was throwing darts, and he looked comfortable, and that had been a major issue this season for Wilson, coming into these games and looking terrible. He looked genuinely great early on.
Yeah, I was really excited to see that type of composure and the ability to get the ball on the field in the first half. I thought we were going to be in for a 4-quarter game until the 3rd quarter happened, and like you said, the Jets didn't really see the football, and the Eagles started to pull away. But I like the competition from him. I like the fact that he was able to kind of go toe-to-toe with, Gardner Minshew of all names, but still an NFL offense on the other side of the ball. He kept them in the game. The Elijah Moore thing is building steam, but still not there, but it's building steam. I'm excited about their future. It's just like you can pick small things out of it. Like, it's not a complete loss. Like when you watch the Jaguars, you're like, I don't even know where to talk positively about this team. There are moments of inspiration. It's just they haven't put it together, and that's teams like this that tends to be the case.
That's 6 straight losing seasons now for the Jets, who are 3-9. And Minshew, I seek it out if you haven't seen it. Minshew celebrating with his dad after the game. He's a funny dude, Minshew.
He's got juice, man.
I don't know
what. Play.
I don't know. I would love to see what his day-to-day deal is, because he seems really interesting. All right, there's one more game with Shook, and it is the other New York team. Oh, New Jersey, actually. There's only one New York team. Hey. That's what other people.
I mean, is that the person with that accent probably wouldn't be saying that so much?
It's the Western New York accent, but I don't know what that is.
Oh yes, our Bills are so special.
Classic Buffalo.
Play action fake. Tua rolling to his left.
I would like to have some wings now.
I'm from Western New York.
It makes it a 2-score game.
Oh, that's huge
with
right
11
there,
minutes left to play.
Oh, let us journey to Orchard Park.
We'll lunch in summer there.
Jimmy Cephalo with the call for WQAM. The Dolphins keep winning. Tua Tagovailoa threw a pair of short touchdown passes. Dolphins extend their winning streak to 5 games, topping the Mike Glennon-led, and it will be Mike Glennon, well, if he's healthy, for the foreseeable future.
Yikes.
Daniel Jones is going to miss multiple weeks with this neck issue. Anyway, 22-9, final score, Dolphins over the G-Men on the most beautiful natural turf in America. Shook from 1-7 to 6-7 with a favorable schedule ahead. How'd the Dolphins do it on Sunday?
Similarly, how they've done in the last month. I mean, their defense has really given their offense a runway to either succeed or struggle. And today was more of a struggle. Not on the part of Tua, who had a very strong game. I think he has 4 straight games with the passer rating over 100, which is good for them. But, I mean, we've seen this from the Giants kind of the last few weeks, is that their defense has come together. So it was kind of a scrappy, grinded out sort of game that the Dolphins ended up pulling away in. Not one that's super aesthetically pleasing, but because the Dolphins, it's like you got 2 teams that are kind of similar, but the Dolphins are just a little bit better in certain areas, and that's what produces a 20-9 win, and the ability to come through in the clutch. It's just something that the Giants still haven't been able to do. Is in key downs. They're 6-16 on third down. Not that the Dolphins were much better; they're 6-15, but there's just a slight difference between these 2 teams, and the Dolphins have that positive momentum going because they can rely on their defense and hope they get enough out of their offense, and they got enough out of it today. And I continue to be very impressed by Jalen Waddle. I mean, he is the go-to guy in that offense, and he went down with cramps, and for a moment it was like we're fearing a knee injury, and then he came back and he was smiling on the sideline, and it was like all of Dolphins Nation, wherever they reside in Miami or otherwise, they were all rejoicing at the fact that their greatest offensive hope is still good to go.
I know Miami has a consistent wandering eye under center, but I feel like the Tua experience over the last couple of weeks has shown you that he is accurate, he's efficient. They've put the offense around him in a way that with Waddle, especially, the connection has been valuable for them. Like, I don't know if it's enough to keep the job with the way they operate, but he's making an argument for himself.
Yeah, they were one rare Jalen Waddle drop away from maybe having another touchdown on the board because he hit him on a quick slant and he had plenty of room to run and just didn't catch the ball. So maybe the stat line looks better, and maybe that's the highlight that you lean on. You're like, oh, look, there's the connection. It's really starting, he's got the job. But I think he's done enough in the last few weeks, and we'll see. They still got 5 weeks left. I think he's done enough in the last few weeks to at least earn a right to the discussion for next year. And if he can continue this type of play and they can somehow maybe sneak in the playoffs or be right on the edge, it's going to be really hard, I think, unless it's Deshaun Watson and you figure all that out, to necessarily move on from him if he, finishes strong.
You know what we should do? As long as this winning streak continues, we should not bring up that name as long as the Dolphins keep winning. We should have a moratorium on that name until the Dolphins fall.
It's not us, though. It's the owner. And,
well, we're mentioning him every time we bring up the Dolphins.
That's fair. I just mean that the fact that they went so far into it, because you said okay, he probably will have earned another look. If they got rid of him after this season, it would almost be unprecedented for a top 5 pick with the numbers that he's had with the people. I'm not a big QB wins guy, but it's they've won way more games than they've lost with Tua as the starting quarterback. If you go back to last year, they're 10-7. They bounced back from 1-7. Now, most of it is the defense, but he does specific things really well, and they have. It's hard to get too excited when you're beating Tyrod Taylor 17-9 and you're beating Joe Flacco by 24-17 and you're beating Mike Glennon but they've done their job, and it is amazing for a team that we all said was a mess internally that they turned it totally around, and they've shut everyone
It should
out.
be said, you say it's unprecedented that a team would move on from a quarterback 2 years in, considering all the factors. Well, it's also unprecedented that a potential guy could come on available, but we're not saying
I'm just saying a pick that high who's thrown 23 touchdowns, 11 interceptions with good numbers and winning games. It's pretty rare to even be talking about it.
All right.
I mean, Daniel Jones would kill a small family for numbers and wins like that.
We do not know that
he
would do
Daniel
that.
Jones.
Probably no. I don't know. Well, maybe we don't know.
No, that's
like that.
That's too.
Hey, Nick Shook, do you fancy a barrel over Niagara Falls? Do you?
Hey, would you like to stop over in Rochester and get yourself a garbage plate on the way to Orchard Park?
That's my birthplace, Rochester,
good,
New York, by the way.
Really?
Returned there 20 years later and was mugged there outside of a bus station. So it's welcome back to the place of your birth.
Ouch. Well, sometimes.
Soft mugging. I had like a Blockbuster card on my wallet at the time, so there wasn't a lot.
Would you like to rent a videotape in Rochester, the birthplace of Marc Sessler?
Hard pass.
Stay out of Rochester, Mark. You're no longer welcome. All right, Chuck. See you, buddy.
All right, guys.
Take a break, and then we'll hit the defending champs.
From the 11, the snap to Brady has passed toward the end zone. Caught ball.
Greg's
Touchdown,
like, not funny.
Tampa Bay. Rob Gronkowski's
Not my
got
type of
two
comedy.
today.
What are you talking It's like Dan's mad if he only laughed like 6 out of the 7 times. What are you talking about?
Gene Deckerhoff. Not funny. WFUS with the call. Tom Brady threw for 368 and 4 touchdowns, 2 of them to BFF Rob Gronkowski. And the Bucs move to the brink of clinching the NFC South, 30-17 win over the Falcons. That's 3 every other team in the NFC South is like 4-6 or something. It's just like it's a complete slop fest, and then there's the Bucs. 3 straight wins for the Bucs. They have a 4-game lead in that division with 5 to play. It's funny, like, you know how we, on our TV show on Fridays, which everyone should check out on Saturdays on NFL Network, we talk about when we get to the AFC South, we always struggle, whoever lands on either the Texans or the Jags, like, what are you going to talk about for 2 minutes? I continue to have this issue with the Bucs, although they're this, juggernaut, like, racing back to the playoffs, because I don't really know what to add, because they're just taking care of business. I think it's interesting. Gronk healthy again, once again, is such a important part of the offense, and you could tell just Tom Brady is more comfortable when he's got that guy on the field. He had 27-yard and 11-yard touchdowns. Brady's at 44 years old, throwing 51 passes in a game, completing 38, and we've been talking about it, Gregg, and we'll get to Kyler Murray a little bit later, and I know Jonathan Taylor's having a huge season, but you cannot take Tom Brady out of the MVP conversation because he did have a bad pick 6 that Marlon Davidson showed a lot of athleticism right at the end of the half that made this game almost interesting, but ultimately it was Brady in cruise control, and he is just piling up the numbers once again.
Yeah, he sees Gronk in man coverage in the red zone. Gronk's going to get that ball. He sees Chris Godwin in this game, period, and Godwin's going to get that ball. 15 catches for Godwin, the most of any player in any game all season. Matt Ryan took 11 quarterback hits and 5 sacks in this game, whereas they almost, the Bucs, that is, their offensive line, almost had a Golston, which longtime listeners will know is no quarterback hits, no sacks. There was 1 quarterback hit on Tom Brady, and that's it. The only thing I'm watching is, like, can they stay healthy? Carlton Davis returns, and then Jamel Dean, who's the other starting corner, gets a concussion. Edwards is out because he makes the funny vax card before getting vaxxed anyways, which is like the dumbest thing ever. So they seem like they have these things, but they're piling up their wins.
Do you come away with any concern about what Atlanta did on the ground early? I think they had like 99 yards rushing when the Bucs had 11, and we know that Tampa's run defense can put it to teams week after week. Is there any concern there, or we just forget about it?
I wasn't really concerned at any point watching the game.
Maybe not personally, like
well, yeah,
probably getting through it on a personal
Were the
level.
Bucs concerned? You'll have to ask them. I couldn't tell you that.
But I'll get on that.
Yeah, they gave up some yards last week.
They can't pass protect Atlanta, and their quarterback can't move. And again, it's just like, they're a hard watch for me, the Falcons, because of that. And Matt Ryan, I just wonder what his long-term future is. I know the money makes him the guy again next year, but is Arthur Smith watching this guy week after week and be like, man, is this the guy I want to go to war with for another 17 games next year? That's not a popular opinion.
Another team that passed on Justin Fields and Mac Jones. I mean, they took Pitts, but it was a decision.
I just wonder what happens and how much the money complicates any decision that they make at quarterback, which is not to put this loss or this season at the feet of Matt Ryan, but it just feels like he's an odd fit where this organization is right now.
He is, but imagine like almost all of the rookie quarterbacks outside of Mac Jones being shoved into that offense this year. It's a cupboard is bare scenario.
They are showing a total lack of depth or coaching by playing Jalen Mayfield every week. It's just like there's that one guard, I feel like, every season that like every one who watches football a little just makes fun of because he gives up like 4 sacks a week and gets dominated, and that's Jalen Mayfield. Like the opposing team, everyone is fighting to line up against Jalen Mayfield and just like beat him like a drum. Just have some mercy. Take him out.
Does not sound fun.
Take him out.
Does not sound
Take him out.
enjoyable. By the way, that's now 90 touchdowns in the regular season for Gronk and Brady, passing your boy Gregg, Phil Rivers, and Antonio Gates for number 2 in NFL history. The only duo to have more connections, and it's by a considerable amount, 22 more. Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison.
It's so weird because Brady's season, I would say, is not better than he was last year overall.
Right, but
and he wasn't even an MVP
there's
consideration.
no Aaron Rodgers.
Right, that's what I mean. Right now, he's number 1 on my QB index, and so then you would have a shot to win. Like, whoever's the best quarterback is going to have a good shot. It's just a strange season.
All right, let us now move to Chicago, where the Bears were hoping to pull an upset with Andy Dalton behind center.
Murray takes the shotgun snap, straight drop back, flushed out of the pocket, rolling right, being chased. He tucks, he runs at the 5, and he heads to the corner, and he's into the end zone for the touchdown.
Dave Pash with the call, KTAR. Welcome back, Kyler Murray. Cardinals got their star quarterback back on the field, and it paid immediate dividends. 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing scores, and a 33-22 victory over the moribund Chicago Bears. Marc, DeAndre Hopkins was also back in this game. He caught a touchdown pass. The Cardinals keep winning.
I think from the side of the offense, you love to see that Kyler Murray had a season-high 59 yards on the ground off of 10 carries, and he looked good. He looked healthy, and DeAndre Hopkins had a couple catches in this game that showed you that acrobatically, athletically, he's fine. The story of the game was this defense. This is, I think, the most balanced team around right now. And you almost forget about them because they went through the Colt McCoy thing, but this defense has delivered week after week. And they gave Kyler Murray and the attack the ball on 4 interceptions on the Chicago 28, again on the Chicago 28, the Chicago 15, and the Chicago 12. This was not a game where Arizona playing in a pouring rain, and I don't think that's the best environment for this offense. They were not their typical selves. Kyler Murray had 2 fumbles on those first 2 drives, recovered both of them, but he looked to be affected to some degree by the weather. There were a couple passes that were off. It didn't matter. I mean, they were too complete, and the Bears are a hot mess. It gets boring to even discuss Matt Nagy, but I do feel like he's starting to come undone on the sideline a little bit. He had this like winter hat on that was like crooked over his ears because of his microphone. He was just always jawing at the refs. At one point, Cliff Kingsbury bumped his mouth into a shoulder pad of a Cardinals player and was like spitting blood out of his mouth. They cut to like Bears consultant Mike Pettin up in the booth, and he just looks sad and lost. So it was a long day.
Wait, what is Mike Pettin doing? I didn't know
he's a consultant on the. He's a consultant on the team, and they cut to one of those booths with everyone. I was like, that's Mike Pettin. He's just staring out at the clouds.
How much do you think he gets paid?
Like
for
our salary times 8 or something. I mean, please.
Do you think Mike Pettin gets paid $300,000 for that?
Yes, more.
We have
I think that's a good over/under. I think that's a good over/under.
Well, I don't know what player minimum is right now.
I would guess a little less than that if I had to guess. But
good work, though.
He's a former
He's doing fine. I don't mean consultant. No one knows what you're doing anyway.
You're completely fine.
There wasn't like a hot market for his services this offseason, probably. He might still be getting paid. I want to do an impression, though, for you guys.
Is it a British accent from Western New York? Because that bit kills.
Greg is above that.
What are you guys talking? I laughed the whole time. That's why I'm pushing back on this. If I had a sour look on my face, it was because I looked down right when you were talking, and I was thinking, I had some great Joe Judge points to make that I forgot. But that's what the Tuesday or Thursday.
Ship has sailed, baby.
Yes, you got that. You just chamber that one. And
that's what the Thursday show.
You'll come in flying on that Thursday.
Here's the impression. It's of Marc. You, Dalton. Like that was something that happened during today, and then another impression of Marc during this game. Yes, and he was. Whoa, excuse me, that was disgusting. He was so fired up. I'm fired up during this game. He was yelling at Andy Dalton. And
what is up with you and Dalton?
I'll tell you why. No, wait, because
like
when
intensity.
Greg tells an accurate story about me, I'll say that's exactly right. Every time Marc speaks, Greg concocts some lie. Not that time. I just want to see the Cardinals be like all they can be a dominant team. And they got a little close at the end where like the Bears with David Montgomery, who I think is the best thing they have on offense right now. Darnell Mooney had like one catch 4 quarters into this. They were just poorly organized. But I want the Cardinals to win. That's all.
It's not only that, though, because you sometimes have it in for certain teams and coaches, and you hate the Bears. You hate how boring they are, and I get it.
Yeah.
And
I hate it for Bears fans.
You want that misery to just compound and snowball until everyone's fired and the team starts over. So I think to me, having sat next to you watching football for 10 years, I'm guessing it's more burn the Bears rather than yay Cardinals.
It's definitely like
and a special intensity today. There's no bye week. There was a bye week for the Browns. Maybe that was part of it.
That's
so
true.
You were just like enjoying
his lock out of the way.
I appreciated it. You're just you, Dalton.
He had the Fugazi Cowboys lock on Thursday, so that was out of the way.
There's no more Fugazi than Patriots over Titans with like 8 healthy players. But anyways,
Patriots were the Titans were the number 1 seed last week. By the way,
yeah, but that's like on a week to week matchup, you have to say that was as Fugazi as what I pulled off. But Andy Dalton, to me, if you're doing what the Bears are stuck doing with him right now, you're at the end of the road. He's an end of the road scenario.
I mean, this game isn't about Andy Dalton.
I know
it's like a driving rainstorm. And they outgained what a weird box score that the Cardinals have 257 yards.
It's a short drive.
That they lose the turnover battle 4-0. The Bears have 4 turnovers. It's just a strange game, but that's a move it along. Nice job.
All right, let's move along.
Barring a defensive penalty, is the last play of the game. Carsey rushed by 3, steps up, he's got to launch it. He does. He's got the arm to get it to the end zone. 3 Raiders receivers there. It pops up in the air and falls incomplete. Washington has won their 4th in a row. They get out of Vegas with a 17-15 win.
Bongos. I would have given the Bongos to the Lions.
This is a you can make the choice here.
Controversial decision behind the glass. But here we are anyway. Taylor Heineke threw 2 touchdown passes, set up new kicker Brian Johnson with the game-winning 48-yard field goal, 37 seconds to play. And they did get that stop right at the end. On defense, desperation heave from Derek Carr. No bueno. 17-15, Washington over Raiders. Greggy, we watched that last kick live together. I thought there was no way, and maybe this is just my Jets fandom and their horrible kicker situation coloring the situation. I thought there was no way an unknown kicker would step up in that spot, but the football team has some juice right now.
Dave, they just have this feeling to them that, they're going to win this game at the end. That things are going to break their way. That Taylor Heineke, who throws an interception in the 4th quarter on the Washington's second to last drive to set up Las Vegas to go take the lead, and then throws what would have and should have been a pick 6 that Travis Morrig, the Raiders safety,
brutal.
On their last drive, just forcing passes that he shouldn't. And that's why I've kind of stayed off this Heineke bandwagon. He's fun to watch, great backup, like he does it all. But it's just like these loose plays have been there throughout the course of the season, and you figure they're going to come back to bite him. Goes right through Morrig's hands, and then and Heineke, to his credit, makes a couple good plays to set up that field goal, and they get it, and they get the win. But these games, it's just like these late afternoon games, they were all afoot. That Carlos Dunlap, tips that Jimmy G pass. He has the open receiver. The 49ers could have tied it there. We talked about that
amazing play by Lamar Jackson on the incompletion.
I'm not saying that. I wanted to watch this with you. It was a good play by TJ Watt. But yes, 2 or 3 inches closer, and they make the play there. And then Derek Carr, who I think played a very Derek Carr game, very solid, didn't make mistakes, moved the ball well, had 2 throws that he absolutely wants to take back. He had an open 2-point conversion that he just sailed in the 4th quarter, and then he had Zay Jones streaking wide open for a touchdown in the 4th quarter. They ended up settling for the field goal to go up 15-14, and he missed both of those throws.
If you're the Raiders, you want to be different than the past Raiders team, make those throws.
They were there too. They were open receivers.
Somebody's got to make a play, and it can change your season. And instead of being, in position entering Sunday Night Football to be in first place, you're again back to 6-6, and again facing all the same questions, specifically now about your offense and the ability to score in its present state.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys game stands out as a holiday aberration because the Raiders prior lost to the Giants, Chiefs, and Bengals and did not top 16 points in any of those games. Their schedule, as much as any of these muddled, bizarre, middling teams vying for playoff spots, is rough. They've got the Chiefs, the Browns, the Broncos, the Colts, and the Chargers to close the season.
And no Darren Waller today was a killer. I wasn't too surprised that they didn't move the football that well. I was surprised by the Washington football team's social media account after the game. I don't know if you saw this, Dan, but they have a picture photoshopped of Terry McLaurin spray painting "Welcome to Ass Vegas."
No. It's LOSS. Loss.
Oh, I thought that was an A.
Had they done what you said, Greg, that would
way
be
better. Las Vegas.
Ass Vegas would have been pretty good. That would have been a good burn.
I thought it was. I was like, wow, they're really taking this trash talking on social to another level.
Either way,
makes
that's
more
stupid.
Sense.
That's a bad Photoshop, and it's tacky as hell. And Washington should sit out a whole bunch of plays.
That stuff comes back to bite you. Ass Vegas would have really come back to bite you.
I guess I was surprised that it wasn't a bigger story too. I was
is there some type of amazing? I think maybe they played in a Super Bowl, but like an amazing Washington Raiders rivalry where you have to be doing,
no, outside of that Super Bowl, absolutely not.
On Twitter?
No.
They play once every 4 years. They're feeling themselves,
All right. Well, good for Washington. They're kind of a fun team. I think Heineke's a fun guy to watch. So they're in the mix.
Absolutely. Antonio Gibson, too, made the play of the game, one of the plays of the game with a 3rd and 1 early where he should have been stopped for about a 7-yard loss, gets the first down, ends up setting up their first touchdown, was right on the goal line. He's been awesome.
All right, let's take a break, and then we finish out. We got 2 more games.
Mo Alley Cox motions to the left side. They give off to Taylor. Right up the gut. Touchdown! I-N-D-Y! Jonathan Taylor with his 2nd rushing score in the ball game, and the Colts have broken it open 20-0.
Jonathan Taylor was back on his game. The MVP candidate ran for 143 and 2 touchdowns, and the Colts roll to an easy 31-zip win over the hapless Texans. That was Matt Taylor, by the way, WFNI. Texans turned the ball over twice in the first quarter. Tyrod Taylor got benched. What a weird year he's had. And the Texans, Marc, are 2-10.
Yeah, I don't think we need to unfurl like a verbal Russian novel on this game. It went according to plan for the Colts, who regularly hammer terrible teams like this. They got off to a little bit of a slow start on offense, but their defense had the 2 takeaways that led to a touchdown early on and a missed field goal. But then it's like you're waiting for Houston, as we have been all season, to awaken on any level. They had 48 yards at half, 3 first downs, 5 of 6 drives went for less than 8 yards. It was a disastrous showing by up there with Jacksonville, the least watchable attack around, with very little hope. I mean, I don't know what you just need. You cannot. The offseason cannot come quickly enough for them. The Colts, they just took care of business. They showed their defense right now, which leads the league in takeaways, points off turnovers, and forced fumbles. Put it to the Texans early, and there was just no coming out. David Culley finally, to me, looks like someone who's sort of being kept there against his will on the sideline.
Yeah, we don't need a 17th game for some of these teams. It feels so late for the Texans. They dropped back to pass 31 times today, and they ended up with 57 yards. That's next level. I have 2.
It's not pro football. It was hard to watch.
If I became a head coach, there's 2 things I would immediately try to do game management wise.
Let's hear it.
Here it is.
You're burying this so late in the show.
Don't give Jonathan Taylor or guys like him 32 carries in a game like this. This stuff happens all the time.
Yeah.
The other thing, and I really think this is going to take over someday. There's so many teams that snap the ball with 15 seconds left when they're up 2 or 3 scores, throughout the whole second half of the game, with 12 minutes left. Start already milking the clock much earlier.
It adds up.
I like that
It
a
adds
lot.
up so fast. And,
Right.
and even the Patriots do it. They'll snap it with 20 seconds, up 17 points with 12 minutes. Just, come on.
I think, yeah.
Those are my 2 things.
We talk about the running clock would work in a game like this. Just let's get out of here. It's about health and safety. There was a couple weeks ago, I think, a Bills game where where they were blowing out an opponent, and like Josh Allen's dropping back and throwing crossing patterns to Stephon Diggs when they're up 30 points. And I'm like, what are we doing here?
I mean, if anything,
is this for fantasy owners?
They put Davis Mills in, if anything. I mean, Taylor was a little banged up, but he could have played. But you're right. I mean, I would just melt away the final 10 minutes of games like this into oblivion.
There was a stretch in the first part of the game, just like watching like the possessions, where they just kept. The Colts kept punting it from the 50 to the 10, and then the Texans kept punting it from the 10 back to the 50, just back and forth, 3 and outs, 10 to 50. It was like that. This is the last game I want to watch.
Let me just really quickly read Houston's drive chart before we kill them for the week. Interception, fumble, punt, 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 downs, punt, downs, downs. Check you later.
The Colts simply massacre the league's have-nots. And by the way, the Texans, who, again, when the season ends on January 9th, they will memory hole this season. It will have never existed. You won't even be able to find it in the media guide. They are the first team to be eliminated from playoff contention.
Oh, wow.
It's December 5th.
The Colts would be the 6th seed in the NFC, but they're still stuck at 10 at 7 and 6 in the AFC. The AFC is sneaky, even though it's not great, it's sneaky deep. There's a lot of teams with winning records, whereas in the NFC, there's only 5 teams with winning records.
There's a lot of good, bad teams or bad, good teams in the AFC. Like, there's a whole mess of those guys.
Bad, good is, I maybe would go good, bad.
Like, I'll use your team, the Browns, on a bye. Are they a good, bad team or a bad, good team?
Just flat out very annoying to the senses.
I think they're a bad, good team. The Steelers are a good, bad team.
What does that mean? What is the difference between these two?
Oh, there's a difference.
Yeah, there is. The Steelers, to me, are a good, bad team. They're maxing out what they can do. The
Browns
Colts
are a bad, good team.
Right, because
the Colts
we
are
assumed
a bad,
they were
team.
good,
They
and
should be better than
they're
7
intrinsically too bad to be good.
No, because I don't think they're intrinsically bad. I think they're intrinsically good, but they're really bad. They're on the lower end of what goodness is.
I mean, I should understand the
meaning. Where the
meaning.
Steelers are at the higher end, the highest end of what a bad team can be.
I mean, they all sort of suck. That's how I feel about the
Texans
AFC.
suck. That's for sure.
Outside of the Patriots.
All right, Sunday Night Football.